Thanks everyone for joining this session for our WETESTER initiative. So I hope you are aware of the like we have recently started this community to help you guys and giving back to the community. So today's agenda would be like Akshat. He is one of our senior mentor, and he'll guide you through our Xpath session. Yes, Xpath is like kind of a very basic stuff, which eventually everyone in automation use on daily basis, and we must have a good command on this like tech stack. I can say. So probably we'll have a 30-minute session. Like he will guide us how we can build the robust XPath on our day-to-day automation problem statements. And then after that, you guys having any queries and questions, so we'll open that Q&A. And if somebody not able to join this today's session, so probably we'll post this recording in our YouTube channel as well. I think over to you, Akshat.
Perfect. Thank you, Ankur. Yeah. And welcome everyone once again. So before we begin this session, I believe most of us are aware of this term called Xpath. And when any UI automation engineer approaches the test automation part, we generally begins with our automation generally depends on page objects, and page objects are built on top of these locators and then associated methods with those elements. Now, Santosh has to mute. Okay, I'm getting Radhika Gupta. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I got distracted. Never used Zoom before. So I'm actually accepting people right here. All right. Welcome, Radhika. So what happens is, it's pretty simple when we have a development team sitting next to us, because then as a UI automation engineer, we can always request them to provide IDs and names to an associated UI element. But sometimes it's not feasible always for UI developers to do that. It's an annoying thing because it doesn't happen while coding. People have to add or associate an ID or a name with a UI element. And in such cases, most of the time it has been making standardized practice for the UI development. But when it is missed, then the locators like CSS and Xpath comes into play and make a tremendous difference. In this session, we are going to talk about Xpath, and mostly what happens is it's a very basic knowledge. When you begin with Xpath, we need to understand a few things here. Every browser has its own Xpath engine. So you might have seen this if you have written Expat before, that if you are testing something similar, something on one browser, it might break on another browser because the Expat associated Expat didn't worked well. Something annoyed me in the beginning when I learned this part, and then I tried to dig into it, realize I don't have to really dig it. I realized that it's a native Expat engine that plays a role here, and it's associated with every browser with few exceptions. Now, what happens here is when we write an Expat, we need to understand few terms. And when I raise my hand, it means that keep a note of these terms so that you can go back and read about them. And it's very important when you want to learn writing or crafting Expat. So number one is you should know XML. What is a basic XML is. Number two, you should know what is an XSLT means. XML transformation, XSLT. Keep those right. Jot down these terms, and you got to go back and read about these terms because of course we cannot cover everything in this session. Another basic thing is basic knowledge about HTML. So we have covered XML, XSLT, HTML, DOM, document object model. Keep a note of these terms. You got to go back and read them before you start practicing or learning Expat anywhere. Lots of material available on Google, but don't jump directly there. Go through these things first. Then let's come to what exactly is Xpath is. If you have ever seen an Xpath, it's basically an expression, and it's an expression like a normal algebra expression. But what it does, it tells you to find something. It's a normal path in any operating system. When you try to navigate to a certain directory from C drive or from any drive, you basically do a normal path notation: C colon slash certain folder slash certain folder. It's exactly the same thing in Expat is. All it do is it does not traverse the directory, it traverses an XML document. HTML is an XML document. So what Expat do is it's an expression which follows path notation to go from one end to another end and find certain things. And that certain thing is an element in your web browser, which is basically an element inside your HTML. So if you are clear, just type something in chat so that I can begin. If I'm very fast, just let me know there. Nice, thumbs up. Yes, good. People who have used Zoom, just give me a thumbs up if you're fine with this part, up to this part. Very good. One thumbs up so far. Another thumbs up. Good, good. If you're nice, good. If I'm fast, just put it on chat so that, okay, somebody is asking for admission here. Right. If I'm fast, just chat. Okay, there is something on chat as well. Awesome. Thanks. Sounds good. All right. Great. So first thing first, let's jump into an expression, a basic Expat expression. If I can share my screen, I will. Now, one thing that we usually promote in WETESTERR is we are kind of expert in our domain, and we know which document or which website you should go and find things, and you should be able to find them quickly. We do not promote any website, we do not promote any group or any domain here. You see some website here, I'm not promoting here, but we know that which are the material, which type of material is easy for you to go and access to and read about it, and which I usually go and appreciate team sitting next to us, because then as a UI automation engineer, we can always request them to provide IDs and names to an associated UI element. But sometimes it's not feasible always for UI developers to do that. It's an annoying thing because it doesn't happen while coding. People have to add or associate an ID or a name with a UI element. And in such cases, most of the time it has been making standardized practice for the UI development. But when it is missed, then the locators like CSS and Xpath comes into play and make a tremendous difference. In this session, we are going to talk about Xpath, and mostly what happens is it's a very basic knowledge. When you begin with Xpath, we need to understand a few things here. Every browser has its own Xpath engine. So you might have seen this if you have written Expat before, that if you are testing something similar, something on one browser, it might break on another browser because the Expat associated Expat didn't worked well. Something annoyed me in the beginning when I learned this part, and then I try to dig into it, realize I don't have to really dig it. I realize that it's a native Expat engine that plays a role here, and it's associated with every browser with few exceptions. Now, what happens here is when we write an XPath, we need to understand few terms. And when I raise my hand, it means that keep a note of these terms so that you can go back and read about them. And it's very important when you want to learn writing or crafting XPath. So number one is you should know XML. What is a basic XML is. Number two, you should know what is an XSLT means. XML transformation, XSLT. Keep those, right? Jot down these terms, and you got to go back and read about these terms because of course we cannot cover everything in this session. Another basic thing is basic knowledge about HTML. So we have covered XML, XSLT, HTML, DOM, document object model. Keep a note of these terms. You got to go back and read them before you start practicing or learning Expat anywhere. Lots of material available on Google, but don't jump directly there. Go through these things first. Then let's come to what exactly is XPath is. If you have ever seen an XPath, it's basically an expression, and it's an expression like a normal algebra expression. But what it does, it tells you to find something. It's a normal path in any operating system. When you try to navigate to a certain directory from from C drive or from any drive, you basically do a normal path notation, C colon slash certain folder slash certain folder. It's exactly the same thing in Xpath is. All it do is it does not traverse the directory, it traverses an XML document. HTML is an XML document. So what Expat do is it's an expression which follows path notation to go from one end to another end and find certain things. And that certain thing is an element in your web browser, which is basically an element inside your HTML. So if you are clear, just type something in chat so that I can begin. If I'm very fast, just let me know there. Nice, thumbs up. Yes, good. People who have used Zoom, just give me a thumbs up if you're fine with this part, up to this part. Very good. One thumbs up so far. Another thumbs up. Good, good. If you're nice, good. If I'm fast, just put it on chat so that okay, somebody is. So first thing first, let's jump into an expression, a basic Expat expression. If I can share my screen, I will try to show you something which is very basic. And please let me know if you see my screen here. Now, one thing that we usually promote in WETESTERR is we are kind of expert in our domain, and we know which document or which website you should go and find things, and you should be able to find them quickly. We do not promote any website, we do not promote any group or any domain here. You see some website here, I'm not promoting here, but we know that which are the material, which type of material is easy for you to go and access to and read about it, and which I usually go and appreciate. Guru 99 works for some time, sometimes it does not at all. But if you see here, it's a basic expression, and it starts with 2/. We will talk about what this slash is. But if you see this expression, it starts with 2/ and a tag name. What is a tag name? Everyone knows that in HTML document, it's full of tags. So whatever tag we want to see, it's that, like div, image, etc. The image is self-explanatory. Admit. All right. And then there's a square bracket which has an attribute and its value. Okay. Now in this expression, when we say 2/, it means that you have to talk about a current node. And what is this current node is, when you give the tag name, it's the current node. That's the current node. So when I say //div, it selects all the divs in your HTML. And when you say //div, within brackets, add the rate, which means you tell the browser engine or the Expat engine in the browser to select an attribute. So it's like giving a command to the engine saying that I want to select an attribute, and then you write an attribute name. So you can write class, you can write href, you can write source, src. All these are attributes. And then you associate the value of this attribute with it. And when you associate a value in Expat, it's single quotes. All right. So this is a basic Expat expression. Now with this Expat expression, And this is a relative expat expression. Okay, so now question is, what is relative expat? And it's a very general question in interviews for the beginners especially, that what type of expat, what are the different types of expat, and people get confused, like what is relative, what is absolute. So absolute and relative, two types of expats. Absolute in general terms, if I say, uh, if I have to reach from Sweden to your home in India, I will probably start with my address, with my location, because I'm at the root location right now. And I say, from here, from my city to my, or maybe from my street to my city to my country, and then I board something, some transportation, and then I reach India, and then in India I'll reach to your state, and then inside your city, district, and then inside your tehsil, and then maybe near to your home. And this, you see, it's an absolute thing, like from C drive to the end of the path in your computer. If you want to access a file, that's an absolute path. But what is relative path is, if you're already at some location and you want to reach there, you just mentioned that, okay, I don't have to find everything right from the beginning. I am somewhere, and from here I want to go to my address, and this address is the location of my element. So when I try to write something which is from my current location without giving an absolute detail about the path, then it becomes a relative path. Let's go to inspect here for a better understanding. And if you see my screen, you see the first element which I'm highlighting here, the HTML head. This head, and then comes the body. Every page has a head and a body, and sometimes it can have multiple heads and bodies. But if you try to reach to some element here, for example, inside this iframe, I have another HTML, or inside this table, I have some table rows. And let's talk about this one. If I say, if you see the highlighted one, if I want to write an absolute XPath, I will rather start with my slash head or slash HTML part. And I don't want to do that because it's highly brittle, highly uh, uh, unreliable. And why will that be unreliable and brittle? I will talk about that later. But I don't want to go from the beginning. I just need a relative XPath. And when I want a relative XPath, I will simply say table is the tag I know. So I will say // table, and I will be able to find all the table elements in this page. And then starts with square bracket. And if I want exactly this table, I can use any attributes. If you see, every brown highlighted text here in this line, cell spacing, cell padding, class, style, these are the attributes associated with this tag table. Okay, and when you use these attributes, you say at. So I want to tell the browser engine that I want to select an attribute, write class at class equals to, and this is the class name, and it has two classes, gstl underscore 50 and gsdb underscore c. Let's write down the same thing that we have seen in the expression here. If you see my screen, I just cannot enlarge it right now. But let's say // and I will take a copy of this attribute. Tag name is table, and then I start with the brackets. I will tell the engine add the rate because I want to select something, and I say class, and I say class equals to, in single quotes, I just need my class name. In the single quotes. There it is. And you see how many elements have I found with this expression? pure express expression that we have seen, and now we have just used that expression to find something, and just one element. Let's go back and remove this attribute part. Everything, just remove this attribute part. There it is. You see how many elements do I find here? I find 7 table elements. Okay, Anbu Singh wants to. Cool. And how many tables do I find? 7. And to exactly go to the element of my interest, I use attributes to pinpoint or to or to get them. Now, what happens here? Coming back, Control Z. Okay. Now, what happens here is sometimes the classes, the associated classes, does get changed when the development happens. So today some deployment, this Xpath works fine. Tomorrow there's another deployment where the UI team has taken a call that we probably don't want one of these classes here. We just want one class, and everything in that class will take care of the styling of this element on the UI. What happens there if I remove this? You see, I couldn't find anything right now. Okay. I couldn't find anything. Well, still that class is there. And what do I do in this case? So usually there's a very good interaction between the UI developers and the UI automation folks. So when they get to know that something has been changing, or if they discover something has been changed in the class level or the attribute level, there's a small discussion like, hey, what happened? Is there any change in the class? And the developer will tell you that, yeah, there is one change. Now we are only going with one class, not with 2 classes. But you have to go back and change this in your Expat then. And you don't want to do that. You always know there is a primary class involved in this. So what do you do in such cases? In such cases, another expression for relative Expat, and if what I'm writing is, please take a note of this. We use library functions. There is something called library functions. Keep a note of library functions in Expat so that you can go back and read about it. And I'm talking about library function called contains. All right, and the expression for contains begins like within the attribute bracket. You say contains, and then say at class, comma, and double quotes. So no equal to involved here. There is no equals to sign involved here. Here you just say contains parameter 1, parameter 2. Parameter 1 for the contains function is your attribute. And again, how do you approach an attribute in an expression? You tell the engine, I want to select an attribute. So add class holds good. And another argument, how do you write multiple arguments in a function? It's comma separated. There is no equals to operator involved. So the another function is the value of the attribute, which here is GST L50. There it is. So now what do you find here? Although here there are 2 elements, table elements with that attribute, but it's totally fine because this is guru.com has been built like this. But this is only to get you a feel of how does how flexible your Expat can be. And you see the flexibility of Expat here is so flexible that it finds 2 elements here. And now if I say no, I don't want 2 elements, I just want 1 element, and which is part of my interest. So I will say, okay, which is more interesting to you right now? And it's like the second one. And you see the second one highlighted here is having an associated ID with it. So of course I don't need Expat then. I will directly go and select an ID. But if there is no ID associated, then what will I do? Then there can be something which you see here, GCS hyphen input is more specific to me right now. Let's try to use GCS hyphen input here instead of GSTL50. GSC hyphen input. Perfect. G commands with you, but try to learn the syntax and the expression behind these commands. And it will take some time to grow upon how different methods and functions you can use within Expat. This is just one example. Okay, there are some questions. Let's stop here and let's take some questions. But what do you mean by basic in HTML? Like how much to read? Yeah, that's a good question. What is basics in XML and HTML? Well, if you see, Radhika, an HTML is an XML document. So if you can just read it, if you are able to read it, try to read few things like what is document object model in HTML. What does that mean? It plays an important role because there are so many ways that you can use your XPath, use the DOM to write something in your browser console within a browser console window that comes with the dev tool. Use this recording if I'm not clear anywhere. It helps you in growing into how you can utilize or how you can understand HTML and its associated attributes for any tag. It's an important topic, so keep just read about them until you feel you're comfortable when you write Expat. You don't have to really do any research on that, but like an hour or so reading about HTML, XML, DOM, XSLT, I think that will be more than sufficient. Then there's another question from Adinath. Why exactly is Expat for same element different in different browsers? Okay, so like I said in the beginning, every browser has its own Expat engine. In technical terms, it is a native Expat engine. Now, there's a catch. Somehow, the older version of Internet Explorer doesn't have this. But the newer versions which are coming, which are based on Chromium browser, and Chromium is a base browser which is free open source, and Chrome is built on it. If you heard of this new browser called Brave, Brave is built on Chrome. Microsoft Edge is now having a Chromium-based Edge available, and it's doing pretty good in market. If I trust the reports, the technical blogs, and each of these browsers has their native engines. So every native engine has its own way of parsing the XML, parsing the Expat, and that's why sometimes you might find that Expat works in one browser but not in other. But if an Expat is highly flexible and reliable, it will just work in any browser. You just have to run it, understand why is it failing and what makes it fail. And whatever makes it fail, it's pretty obvious that because of this reason it is failing. So you compare the Xpath in both the browsers and then try to find a better one that serves both the native Xpath engines in those browsers. Good. Any other question? Please tell how to find if a locator is unique. Perfect. Xpath, regular expression, and boundary extract difference. Perfect. Any downside of using Xpath as compared to other methods? Okay, let's take the simple one first. No downside. there is no downside if you. But understand this. There's a tool. Expat is a way of identifying things, but it might not be really helpful in certain cases. For example, you use Expat when you don't have an ID or a name tag available, or a link or a partial link tag available. All right. So if these attributes are not available, you go to Expat. It's exactly the same thing you have to do. If your Expat is getting really complicated, one of my colleagues 2 days back, he showed me an Expat file where he invested like hours in building Expat. If your Expat is more than 100 characters, as a thumb rule for me, if it is more than 100 characters, I just drop it. I try to do either through CSS or something else, or I'll go and approach my developer saying that I need a simple identification of this element. It does not make sense to write a really huge Expat. It's not sensible because it might break. You are again falling into the same trap of writing an absolute path. Absolute path is extremely long, and then it follows certain path which might break, and it will break your Expat. The relative Expat, if you try to do something similar, if you try to go into the generations of Expaths like child and parent and following siblings, If you keep doing that in one Xpath, it will be highly brittle. I'll take another question from Snehal. She says, Xpath, regular expression and boundary extractor difference. Okay, regular expressions. Wow. Okay. And boundary extractor difference. Can you please clear a little bit more on boundary extractor difference? What extractor? What exactly that means? I never came across that term, boundary extractor.
Akshat sir, Anirudh this side. I have a question, not entirely restricted to Expat, but I'll need to ask. I read somewhere that in some cases CSS is faster than Expat,
Yes.
and also it's the same across browsers. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's right or not. I'm starting myself. I'm a learner only.
That's
So
fine.
so is it not better if we lean more towards CSS instead of XPath? I mean, what is the loss if we go more towards CSS?
No loss. It's just that what tool you want to use and what fits better.
Okay, why is CSS faster than XPath, sir?
Well, it's a nice question. You see, if I try to understand this way, XPath actually follows a path pattern from going from one end to another. So you see, you have to start somewhere, you have to reach somewhere, and when the parsing that happens at the engine level, it takes some time. But when we talk about CSS is in styling format for HTML, and when you try to directly pinpoint, when you're able to that, this is the class which I'm interested in, the whole browser engine understands that, okay, this is the class what I'm trying to. I never go and parse or go on that path of finding something. So if you see, hopping from one end, hopping between stones to reach from one end to another is will take some time, which is like a path, if I can say, what is the right term? The path expression. So the path expression is going to take more time, and when you try to tell the browser that this is the class or the CSS styling which I want to refer to, the browser itself understands that, okay, I don't have to navigate between things, and this is what the demand has been asked to, and it becomes simple for browser to identify that it's the exact element which has been requested, instead of going on a path and finding an element.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Please complete your thought, Akshat.
Yes. So when it comes to choose between XPath and CSS, unfortunately I forgot that example, but it's a good example where CSS is not able to cater the request and XPath comes to rescue. I was talking about this with somebody, that in what cases does this happen? But another, keep a note of it, read about it, that in what cases CSS will not be able to help you, but XPath does. But coming back to the same point, it's the feasibility and it's the strength upon of a tool that whatever it can fit better. Never use XPath if you have an ID. So why to use XPath in that case? It's the same question.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, fairly new over here to all this. When you say CSS is in some cases faster than XPath, is that the execution you're talking about? I mean, faster in what sense?
Yeah, it's. I think I never, because I'm not using CSS to a very long extent. Mostly I rely on XPath because I'm faster in making it. But I think it's the identification of element that takes time. Maybe at the browser engine level, it can be that thing. But I'm not sure about this question. How can I correctly answer this?
All right. No problem.
Yeah, so I can add here, like I can provide you much diagram on this topic. Like I have did some research on this XPath and CSS stuff. So there is like a little bit of you can say some when you find the elements on different browsers, so you'll see some like quick uh, time lag in XPath. And basically, what I can say about this whole debate, in fact, this statement itself is hyped. what I can say, like, and assumed by our QA community. Even though if you check out the Selenium official documentation, so internally those guys have also construct Xpath for like many methods. If you go and check the select class method or page factory, so they use the ID and name there. And even what I can say, like Xpath gives more flexibility over CSS. But assumably, like in many areas, like if you talk about IE browser, so there you have to more rely on CSS rather than Xpath. So it's kind of a like team judgment. I always say, like whichever team or that particular individual contributor finds the way to solve the problem, rather than like just pre-assume like CSS is much better and Xpath is slower.
Like you said, yeah, like you said, Ankur, the hype thing, I believe in that as well, because I've never seen a statics about that. I have never seen if there is an statistical data that says that for a certain thing, Expat has been really long, taking long time in execution or compilation, or the CSS is faster. It's on a bigger front, it doesn't make a lot of difference. It's just that on IE, it does not make sense to use Expat if it is not Chromium based. They don't have an native Expat engine. So CSS comes to rescue, and it really makes a big difference. But everywhere else, if it's a personal choice. My personal choice is Expat because I was using Firebug and Firepath for a very long time. And when they decommissioned it, I was like hanging in middle. So I thought, okay, this is the time I think when I should learn it. And when I learn it nowadays, if you ask me, can you write a CSS path for me? I will probably hesitate. Like, yeah, I can write it, but not very comfortable. And somebody say, if you can you write my Xpath? It will be like a 2-minute job for me. Whatever the Xpath length is.
Understood. So I'm assuming that there are companies or QA practices which have Xpath as best practices versus CSS as best practices. Can I say that? Or is it personal? Or is it on the personal on the tester? What method they want to write their code with.
You see, it's the same argument. Shall I use abstract, or shall I use just interface? Shall I just create interface? They have different uses. So CSS has been built because it solves certain problem. Expat exists in this world because it solves certain problem. If we know that which tool is better to solve solve a certain problem, then it makes a lot of sense in going after it. I mean, I will probably never use Expat if my developers give me the proper ID and names. It just makes no sense to use Expat as a tool for me.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So if somebody says that, yeah, why Expat, why it is delayed, I give an argument like it because it follows a path notation. That's why it might be, but I've never seen that my execution has been delayed, or it's been letting me wait for a very long time because my files are full of Expats. Never happened.
Thanks for that, sir. Just one last request.
Yeah.
There are a lot of websites which tells us how to get the XPath of element manually instead of just simply right-clicking and getting the XPath, which is absolute one. A lot of websites tell us how to get the XPath manually, but I have not come across any website which tells me how to make my own CSS. So not now, later on, if you can just ping a website or a reference which can tell me how to make my own CSS manually, please ping it in the group because I'll like to go through it. As of now, I simply can copy the CSS and then use it.
Yeah, that's very interesting to know. I have never. I'm sure there will be something. It's a very famous technique of finding elements. I think yes, we can find something and share it in our.
So basically, you are looking for like how you can build your CSS in console, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that could be a next topic. I can guide you. Like that's the JavaScript topic. So Chrome console, you guys can easily write your Xpath, and the same way, like I have developed in Firefox and Chrome, but never in IE. So
Yeah,
probably I can guide you.
I have seen most of my developers following CSS for identification of elements when they run their unit test, and they love Firefox for that. I'm sure Firefox will give you a better grip if you want to write your own CSS. But if you try to find something online, yeah, of course, Ankur will be able to find something that that can say that how to craft your CSS path.
Oh, great.
Hey,
Okay.
hey Akshat.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Radhika. First of all, thank you so much for all the tips and all the lessons. Really appreciate it. I have a different question. Different question, because I'm new to testing and I'm learning Java as well. So, could you please tell us that how much core Java should we learn, because it's very overwhelming if I go to different websites and they say, okay, learn this, learn that. It is actually mind boggling, and to study on your own all the time with nobody guiding like you are doing right now. So can you please tell us that how much core Java should we learn as testers? That
You
would be
see,
great.
sure, Radhika. It's a very common question, and everyone falls into this trap that when people try to go into automation from manual testing, people try to learn everything related to the tool that do automation, but hardly people think about learning the language first. And I can assure you this, without knowing the language that you are using for automation and without having a grip on this, you will not be able to succeed, or you will not be able to flourish. You can find job,
Right.
you can work. I have done it myself. This is a live example. I jumped to Selenium and paid a heavy price when I have to encounter people who have better grip on coding. I have lost my job because my profile became redundant, because developers were able to do a better job. The framework we have built was so efficient that uh, even if this is if there involves in maintenance, the maintenance was hardly 5 minutes job per day. It was so efficient, and developers were able to do everything that I was basically hired for. So my profile becomes redundant. I have to find another project where I can
Right.
make it more relevant. So I learned it a very hard way, that without knowing the language and without having a grip on the language, I can flourish, or I can call myself as an automation engineer. And then I started focusing on Java for a very long time. I stopped doing anything in Selenium because when I go back to Selenium, it looks like a play area for me. It's so simple because once I have command on the language, the tool just becomes an icing on the cake to understand.
Okay.
It's that easy. So if you're going towards, I will say, uh, it's a good idea to read about Selenium. It's a good idea to practice so that you can find elements and write them, and then can use certain key features of Selenium. But focus more on language, focus on the OOPS concepts, focus
Okay.
more on design patterns. Very important part. So when I say language, you say collections in Java, generics in Java, uh, uh, um, multi-threading in Java, very important. 3 points.
Okay.
Collections, again raising my point, so keep a note of it. Collections in Java, generics in Java, and multi-threading.
Okay.
Okay, and then keep learning side by side something about Selenium.
So okay, because yeah, because it's like too much of information everywhere out.
That's
So
true.
it becomes difficult sometimes to what to focus on and what not to read. So that's why I thought of asking this.
It's
Um,
it's
yeah.
very unfortunate that people who give trainings never talks about
And even
never.
that's what I'll jumping in your conversations. Like that's what our motive to bring this channel, and that's what we are trying to uplift you guys who are like feeling not privileged and kind of like what I can say when you type Selenium or any other uh, buzzword in Google, YouTube, Udemy, a lot of different available resources which you just mentioned. So we should have some guidance, like what exactly one should follow. So that's what Akshat mentioned in starting, like we are not here to endorse any particular material. So as we are have gone through in our life, we have like kind of a, I have also written in my tech journey also, like the same way Akshat mentioned just now, like when I started working in automation, so I straight away jumped to Selenium, and I was like uh, banging my head like whenever Java comes into the picture. So again, we I personally believe, like if one person just stick to one language in his entire career, I can say he can do much better the person who become jack of all trades, like he knows Python, JavaScript, rest assured, blah blah blah. But if I know just Java, I can write much better code than that person. And that's the motive, like Radhika. If you whenever
Sure,
you
Uncle.
have any questions, just post in the group, and you can get in touch with any mentors. So we
Sure,
are here
Uncle.
to help you. Yeah.
Sure. Sure,
Yeah.
Uncle. Thank you so much.
I like the comment from Anirudh that hope Java has a safe future. Of course, brothers, Java has a safe future. It's you can explore opportunity in any language. It's not just Java. You start with JavaScript, you start with Python. Never focus on limiting your knowledge for any of the language for automation. Start doing development. Start making small tools. Start looking into exploring the other aspect of the language. Take some online courses which are recommended. We can recommend you some courses which one of which our mentors has taken in the beginning of their tech journey. I still take advice from Ankur because now I'm learning JavaScript. So I'm moving away from Java. No, I'm not. But I wanted to gain some more knowledge on JavaScript, and I'm an absolute at zero level on JavaScript. So Ankur has helped me with some text, some materials. I'm following them, but not
E-
just to
e-
strict myself with the automation part, with the
yeah.
development part.
Even on top of that, like that's the way which we are trying to give you the benefits. Like whenever Akshat is talking about JavaScript, so I do not need to give him the proper details. I just talk in terms of even basic programming terms, so he quickly relates the things in JavaScript. So that's what the agenda, like if somebody knows one programming language thoroughly, so he and she can quickly jump to, it's all about syntax, right? Programming in different languages uh, will bother you if you didn't have much command in a single language.
That's true. And like you said, Anirudh, becoming chargeable, well, there are two versions of Java, and Oracle does that. They have a paid version and they have a free version. Free version called OpenJDK, paid version is normal JDK, and people pay for these versions for finding the support. I don't know what is the percentage of people who use OpenJDK, but I have never used paid version through in my career. None of my companies I worked with, organizations I worked with. There are certain organizations that pay for paid version. I don't know what kind of business they do, and they need support on Java. But Java is very stable in all its terms. Just use the stable version of Java, and you can do all sort of developments. You don't have to pay a single penny. So it's totally fine. Never gonna become chargeable. I hope so. Uh, Coming back to the original point, now because we are running out of time, let's keep a note of certain things, because now I think it won't make sense if I start describing them and talking about them. But number one, expression and Xpath. These are the tokens which will be used for creating a full expression. So expressions. Another thing, node type. What is a node type? In Expat, you will be able to find these terms because they are generic terms in relation to Expat. So node type. Another term is wildcard. All right. I really hope I can give you an example of wildcard. It will really help, but I believe uh, the information is available online. There's nothing new that I can talk about. Hundreds of documents. Another thing that you should look for and read about, predicates. just try to find the exact meaning of predicate in English, and you will be able to relate what does that mean in the whole expat context. Predicates. Number 2, operators. Operators in expat. Like we said, equals to operator we have used in our example previously. That's the kind of operator. We have and operator and or operator. How to use it, when to use it, again, hundreds of blogs and things available online. Then number functions. So like I said, library functions, there are so many functions associated. One of the associated function that we see was contains. There are other functions called starts with and something called last. And if I have note down something, sum, you can read about all these things, but I have used only 2 functions so far extensively, and one of them was contains, another was text. And to some extent, sometimes I have used start-with function in my Xpath. You can find a whole list of library full of functions and other things, but ultimately you will only use 10% or 20% of it. So do not break your head on reading everything, but it's good to have the knowledge to some extent. When you start writing Xpath, you will realize I'm not using many of these things that I am talking about, or which are part of Expat library functions, or Expat whole Expat tool or package, I will say. So it's just 20%. Mostly I use maximum 30%, but not everything doesn't need, at least to me. Then we have heard about, oh yeah, very important part. If somebody can ask you, they will just try to test your knowledge on Xpath, then there is a term called atomic values. Okay, keep a note of what term called atomic values. Read about it. It's a very small thing, probably a minute or 2 read will give you a good idea about it. Much important thing is access, AXES, Xpath access. These are those I should say what keywords in the Expat terminology that helps you in crafting an Expat when you just cannot go to an element directly. For example, if you assume a grid, okay, a grid which has a main element and an associated element. Main element is your file name. Associate element is if I want to download this file or if I want to delete this file in a grid. So I have a grid row of like 5 files, and every file I can download or I can delete. And in this case, if I try to go and delete a certain file, the icon or the element of delete or download will not have an association, direct association, but I can identify them. So I have to identify them through a file name, an associated file name in the grid. And normally developers do not take care of marking these elements because it's a dynamic grid. You add a file, there will be another row. You add another file, there will be another row. So if your developer is really good and he understands that how this can be automated, probably they can take care of this in certain terms, but mostly does not. So XPath access comes into play where they can help you in finding the relation of the following element or the preceding element, if it is a child or if it is a parent. So I wish I can do that here, but I think it will take like some time. But feel free, you can contact me later. And if you want to learn about Expat access, we can quickly jump into half an hour session. I'm totally fine with that, free of cost, no charging. Okay, and we can learn about that. So access, read about them. And before we finish this whole session, I'm going to give you one exercise, and this is a very interesting exercise. I found it long time because it does not give you an answer in one go. It pushes you to understand. Like I said, understanding the DOM, it gives you that kind of insight and give you certain answers which you have to contemplate and calculate to reach to the bottom of it. It's not a direct answer that can be found with this exercise. I'm going to paste this and I'm going to talk about what this exercise is about. Like here. So I have a small section of XML that I'm going to embed into my certain website right now. Where is the website? Yeah, here it is. And I'm gonna say zero app web security. Okay, there is one website which I usually recommend and I do use for automation practices. I'm recommending this to all my mentees as well. It gives you all kind of elements. Now let's go to element section. And if you see the element section here, I'm going to do something here. I will edit this HTML. And when I edit this HTML, I can do everything. And inside this, just keep a note of this. I'm going to highlight what I did. I added div 1 here, div 2 here. Like this is my, no, the highlighted section. I just entered this highlighted section, okay? And now I want to find, so this is a very unique div section which I pasted. It has nothing to do with this web page. All I did is I updated an HTML right here. Oh, sorry, Control Z. I updated an HTML here. Okay, and you see this div, which is here, has some text. A text says this is a wonderful way to test. That's my one div. My another div is just a div which says this is a wonderful way to test. And the third div says this is definitely a wonderful way to test. Now you see in this XML, if I can just move this some way, yeah. This HTML part has a very unique word called wonderful, okay? And I want you guys, I'll put it in the chat, this XML, this HTML part, paste it into any website and try to find all the elements that has wonderful mentioned in it, okay? And when you do that, try to do it with Control F, and I say // and I'm gonna find a div with contains, all right, or no, not contains. Let's do something else. Text equals to wonderful. T-E-X-T, text // div text equals to wonderful. Am I writing it incorrectly? Contains. And then close the braces and say text wonderful. There it is. So you see what happens here is, with the help of text function and contains, I was able to find only one div, only one element that has wonderful in it. Okay, just don't go by this double L somewhere and single L. That's fine. When you do contains, it's the context, and wonderful as a context is like it's fine everywhere. Don't go that it has something to do with the spelling here. But you see, it only finds one element. Why does this happen? Isn't the wonderful here, which is part of this div, is the correct identification? Or if you go down the third div, isn't the wonderful mentioned here where my cursor is the right justification of the element? Why couldn't it find all three of them, and why just one? That's the question for you guys to solve when you do that. Okay, so how to do that is up to you. I'm not going to reveal the answer to you, but it's a very interesting thing that I found lately. And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea to share with you guys, just to break your head whenever you're free and whenever you are learning Expat. So I'm going to paste this Expat, not Expat, I'm sorry, the HTML part, Control Z, Control A, Control C in the chat window. And I'm also gonna paste the XPath that I have just used it to find.
Is this kind of a wildcard search or something?
Of course, it's a wildcard search, but it's not going to give you an exact element. There is a reason behind this exercise, and it helps you in understanding what this expat. If you find a right answer, it will help you in understanding what else you can, or to what extent you can use expat. And
first one is inside EM tags as well, and the second one has double L. Is that the reason?
no, double L has nothing to do with it. It's
Double
only
L
to
doesn't
confuse
have,
and
yeah, because,
mess with your mind.
yeah, double L doesn't have anything to do because wonderful itself is there.
Exactly.
EM tag certainly is something which is there within div, which
Yeah.
is why perhaps it is excluding it.
But you see the third one, that's not within an EM tag. So EM is just an emphasis. It will keep your word or whatever the text you will put in bold. So you can find that in any website, but take some time. It's fun when you discover what exactly it do. It might not give you the exact element. It might not give you 3 out of 3, like 1 out of 1, right? We are finding it now. The intent is to find 3 out of 3. You might not get 3 out of 3, but whatever you get, if you hit the right answer, or when you get the right answer, you will know what an expat, what kind of question this expat can solve. It was a good learning for me. So I thought, yeah, let's put this exercise before ending this session. So you got the question now, right? You have an Xpath, which I used, and you have an HTML, which you can just update into any web page and try to find and see what you get.
Right. Okay.
Cool. But yes, whatever the bullet points I asked you to go with, please spend some time there. And one important thing, your interview does not depend on if you cannot answer an expat question. But people who begin their journey, it becomes a very important factor for interviewers sometimes, that how much do you understand when it comes to find a locator. I think in the whole journey so far, whatever interviews I have given, I must have asked, somebody might have asked me like maybe 2 questions so far about Expat. I failed them because I was very naive. I was ignorant. Expat tools like Firebug and Firepath were there, so they were helping me for a very long extent. We have tool as in Crowpath as well. And the good part is it's not just limited to identification of elements through Expat. It's a much more evolved tool. I really like the concept, how the tool is evolving. So give some time there. You can get it on all the browsers, I believe. Firefox, Chrome, maybe IE as well. Spend some time with it, but it's very important to know how to write one, because interviewers, when they ask, it really leave a good impression that they can just test your depth of understanding on scripting and understanding the automation part with just one question. So when they have the assurance that you can answer an expat question, they know that you have taken time to learn things, and that's just a message that you can spread in your interview. It gives a really good impression.
Yeah, even I have quickly share that image as well.
Did I message
regarding
this?
that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Did everyone got the message? Because I think I sent the message privately to someone. Copy. Everyone in the meeting. Sorry guys. There it is. Cool.
Yeah, now we get it.
Cool. All right. So I think if you think I have missed someone questions, I'm sorry. I have asked somebody to clarify me on one of the questions.
Radhika had a question about how to find if the locator is unique.
How to find a locator if it is unique. Is that the question?
I think that's the question.
Yes, Akshat, that's the question.
Okay, so how do you find? Okay, let's go step by step in an expression that we have learned. First thing first, let's try to go with the regular expression, regular Xpath. So double slash, that's the beginning. And then you know the tag of that element. So write the name of the tag. That's again one way closer to the uniqueness. And then in the attributes, try to find a unique attribute about that element. There can be 1,000 div elements, and your div element may have something unique about it. And it can be either one unique div element or a set of unique div elements. So if it is one unique element, try to find an attribute which makes it unique. So attribute name is equals to the value, or if it is a list of uh, unique elements, like I need this set of divs which has this unique attribute. So you have a list of elements that is part of your interest. So then the attribute and the value, and this closes everything, but the attribute value might change, and that's where the role of contains method comes into play. So it makes it more flexible. With this expression, you can find your unique in a very generic term. Now, if you just cannot find with this, try to use access if you don't have a direct relationship with that element in the HTML document.
So Akshat, does mean it's more of a hit and try method, to
No, it's
find
not
out?
hit and trial. No, it's not hit and trial, because every element or the element in an HTML represents something. So if this is an element of your interest and you have a good collaboration with developers, just tell them that you need this element to be identified in a certain unique way. Can you add an ID or a name? And if they cannot do that, or if they fails to do that, then you just try to find something with the building XPath techniques that we just discovered. No, sorry, I'm so sorry. Not discovered. We just discussed.
Okay.
But to come back to your point, if you are not able to do that anywhere, you can always reach me, and we can have a small exercise to see how to find it. And of course, sometimes you just cannot do that because application has not been developed in that way. So if it is a third-party application, I will say never approach UI automation. One of my new team is doing that. They are approaching third-party applications for UI automation. Blunder. Never do that. Thumb rule. People are trying to automate Salesforce. Doesn't make sense. Salesforce is not our application. Still, people are trying to automate Salesforce instead of using backend APIs. So it comes with kind of when you spend some time in the technology and in this field, and you understand that what application should go for UI automation, what should not, what element should go for CSS and not Xpath. It comes with experience. It will take some time. Don't break your head on it. That's why I'm not able to do this. I have not been able to do it for a very long time. But today I'm sitting here and talking with you guys only because that I have learned it a few things hard way, and I believe I can share this information with you. But any of you who are on this call, if you're not able to do or find any Expat anywhere or find it difficult, just hit me up on our Facebook page, and we can sit for half an hour anytime. Not a big deal.
You expect that to happen from my
Great.
side.
It will be a pleasure for me to assist you on that.
Thank you so much.
No problem, sir. Great. Have I missed anyone's question? I hope not. There was something I couldn't make out in the beginning. I was very curious to know what is the meaning of that question. Okay, I couldn't find it. But yeah, guys, hope you have a good session and I didn't eat much of your time. And I hope whatever I speak makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was excellent session. Thanks, Akshat.
It was really
thanks
nice,
everyone
yeah.
who managed to join. If you still have kind of a doubts or any questions, so you can just anytime post in group, and you can reach out us individually as well. We are happy to help. So I hope you all guys are on our new Facebook community. If you
Yes.
not, so you can connect with me on Facebook or Akshat or Piyush or Alok.
Sure.
So
Are you guys based out of India or US or various places? Just a silly question. Sorry.
yeah, I think
We are
across the globe,
distributed.
yeah, distributed agile, you can say that. So like, I think Akshat is in Europe and Alok is in Europe and Piyush and I in IST hours.
Okay.
So that's what, and it's like may I know to whom I am talking? Sorry.
My name is Shobit. I'm Radhika's husband. Sorry, I'm speaking as Radhika Gupta over here. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah. So Shobit, right?
Yes, Shobit.
Yeah, Shobit. Thanks for joining. So I was saying like it's not about like we are not trying to become any random QA group. If you find Facebook, so there are a number of groups of Selenium and automation. So we are trying to bring everyone together. That's what the agenda.
This is a great initiative you guys
That's
have,
really
honestly, because
wonderful. Yes.
I'm having a 20 years experience in IT industry. I'm working as a delivery manager. I'm trying to help Radhika to get onto a QA job.
Yeah.
This kind of initiative is excellent, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Radhika and Sobit, where you guys are currently?
We are in North Carolina, USA.
USA. Yeah.
Okay, so definitely just get in touch with me. So
Absolutely.
I'll definitely help in job hunting as well. No
Thank
problem.
you,
That'll be
Uncle.
great. That'll
We
be
will.
great.
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you, Akshat. It was
Thank
a
you.
great session.
Thank you for joining on such an odd timing, I believe, for you guys.
Anyone?
It's not odd at all. It's basic. I'm wondering, you guys must be on odd timing because it's like 9 o'clock in the morning over here. This is like an excellent. The kids are sleeping as well. It's a day off for them.
So actually, why we have chosen this time, like it's kind of anybody can join across the globe. We're trying to make a balance because first two sessions we have kind of in early morning IST hours. So we get a request from US guys like we couldn't be able to manage that time. So this time is probably good for like US, Europe, and IST time.
It was perfect timing for us.
Yeah. So I think if anybody doesn't have questions, Piyush, I think let's wrap up, right?
No, I'm really happy with the conversations, to be honest, today.
Yeah. Even I like the conversations. And even
And in fact,
I just pasted that comparison chart as
Yes,
well,
I saw that.
where you can
Yes, that's
you
great.
can see the performance of Expat and CSS. So you will definitely be surprised. That's just a myth.
so just to add something to Shobit, actually. So Shobit, WeTestERR is a kind of the same platform where people are struggling with the online material.
Mhm.
We are here to mentor, and when I say mentor, we really mean it, which says from start of your journey till your interviews, and hopefully we would really work hard to ensure that you crack it.
Nice.
So it is a different journey what we have tried to fill a gap for, and we look forward to the associations and more of your participation in such webinars. In fact,
Absolutely.
yeah, so in fact, there are other folks as well. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot out to Ankur or me or WeTestERR on Facebook, anywhere. We would be ready to help you out. We have an expertise team for whom answering your questions would be a minute's job rather than searching over it on Google. So let us spread that and probably just leverage that facilities from WeTestERR. Yep. Thank you from my side.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
guys. This is excellent.
Yes.
Really congratulate you guys. You guys are doing really awesome job.
Yeah, thanks, Sobit.
Thank you.
So I think
I
Thanks a lot, Akshat sir. Thanks a lot, Ankur sir.